Just after midnight on June 22nd, 1991, Charles Holden was on his way home from work when he decided to stop at a fast food restaurant near his house in Harrington, Delaware. And he was about to drive out of the lot when he stopped because there was this man running towards him, waving, trying to flag him down. He told Charles that his sister was having a baby and he needed a ride to the hospital. And he said a bad feeling about him, and so he told him, "No, I'm sorry, it's too late, I gotta get home." And as Charles was watching him go, he felt bad and said, "You know what, hey, come back here, I'll give you a ride part of the way there." Charles drove him approximately 3 miles in the direction he had asked to go, but the stranger, upon hearing he was being let out so soon, suddenly became angry and began fumbling in his pocket. And he starts screaming at Charles, "Hand over your keys, hand over your wallet, or I'm gonna kill you." And so he immediately jumped into action. He turned off his truck, he ripped the keys out of the ignition, and he leapt out of his truck and started running. Charles saw way off in the distance was a convenience store, but as he's running, he turns around and sees the stranger has also leapt out of the car and was now sprinting up to him with a screwdriver in his hand. He wasn't going to make it to the convenience store before this guy caught up to him. Turns around and puts his hands up and he says, okay, I'll give you a ride wherever you want to go, and then you can have my keys, my wallet, you can have anything you want." And he smiles because he's very pleased with this result. And the stranger tells Charles to get in the car and then wait. But as soon as Charles sat down, he fired up his truck and sped off, and he can see the guy is chasing after him with a screwdriver held over his head, but he sees the stranger at some point just stops, turns around, and walks away. And he was thinking about calling the police, but ultimately decided he wouldn't because it was his decision. What Charles was concerned about, though, was where he had ditched the stranger was not far from his house. He's just going to stay outside of town and drive around for a while. So after about an hour of doing just that, and he gets on his street, and he's shocked when he sees the stranger who had just tried to kill him is walking down the road right in front of him. At this point, Charles decides he needs to tell police. And so a few minutes later, an officer showed up and they told Charles they would escort him back to his property. They get there, the stranger's long gone, there's no sign of a break-in, there's no sign that anyone was near his property. He asks him if he wouldn't mind doing a quick sweep of his mother's property. She lived right behind Charles. The back window on the back door has been smashed and the door itself is slightly ajar. They make their way up the flight of stairs and they find blood at the top of the landing. Brings them into one of the bedrooms where a woman is sprawled out on a bed. She had been stabbed to death. After Charles had ditched the stranger and sped off without him, the stranger, whose name was Gilbert Cannon, began looking for a place to sleep, and the house he ultimately selected just happened to be Charles's mother's house. He saw Dorothy coming down the steps to confront him, and because he was worried she'd be able to identify him, he attacked her with a screwdriver. Gilbert would later tell police that the attack on Charles was completely random. He has no idea that this woman, Dorothy, is Charles's mother. The entire night was one big, horrible coincidence. Gilbert would plead guilty to the murder and would be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.